Welcome back everyone. In this video, we will look at how to handle a 4-4 point or a 5-4 point and when your opponent attaches or play around your stones. So once again, if you play the 4-4 and your opponent plays elsewhere, like your opponents play very far away from your stone, you can just take another corner and develop from here. This is pretty simple and you've built territory on the top sides. Next, you can maybe use a kick or a one-space jump. For example, you can use a kick and a one-space jump over here, and then build your own territory on the top side. For example, descending over here and securing your territory. But as you all know, not every single Go game will go as you imagine. Sometimes your opponent will play a bit more aggressive and really play some moves that you did not really prepare for. For example, you played a 4-4 point. What if your opponent look at this 4-4 point and think, okay, how about I play a joseki? And they play a 3-4 point, and it's also an approach, nice approach to your 4-4 point. Here I will give you a few ideas and a few ways to think about this. So your opponent played a 3-4 point, which is taking the corner and also approaching your black stone. In this position, if you play a basic joseki, for example, kick and then knight's move, white has already strengthened these stones and white's already built territory on the bottom side. So with another move, if white gets this move, c4 right now, and black still needs one more move to enclose this territory, then the chances are white is going to end up winning the game. White is going to be in very big favor to win the game. The size of the territory is already quite similar, and white gets 6.5 points Komi. So even though black might be able to get a bit more points than white, for example, let's say when the game plays out like this, and okay, let's say white defends over here, and black does end up with a little bit more points than white. Okay, you can see in this game, after this game is finished, white is still going to win the game by 2 points. And white did play one inefficient move during this game, during this example. So white already has a very nice influence after the third move. The inefficient move I played for white was playing over here. If white plays a diagonal move like this, white will win the game by even more. So when your opponent approaches to your stone like this, especially on a 4-4 point, usually you gotta think of it as a different approach when playing 9x9. You have a corner, your opponent takes a corner. Then you go ahead and take the second corner. Okay? Take the second corner or use a one-space jump. This one-space jump also takes this corner. If your opponent uses basic joseki and tries to enter your corner, you can ignore your opponent in this position and take the third corner. Now you have 3 corners. If white takes a 3-3, okay, now you block. These white stones, yes, white has taken a corner, but white's territory is pressed very low on the second and third line, whereas black's territory is quite large on the left side. So black gave up one corner, but black took 2 other corners. So this is quite a good result for black. Knight's move can also work. If your opponent slides into the corner, then you can go and take another corner. If your opponent takes a 3-3 and really takes a corner right now, you can use a knight's move. Try to enter white's territory, and you're building more territory on this side as well. So with this 9x9, it's quite important that you stay flexible, and if your opponent really wants a corner, you can give it up, build strength elsewhere, and play elsewhere. What if white jumps into the 3-3 immediately? Now I've got good news for you. If white jumps in the 3-3 immediately on a 9x9 board, this is extremely winning for black. All you have to do is play the basic joseki. You block, white extend to build some territory. You extend, white might use a knight's move to save the corner. You use a diagonal move, and if white use a basic joseki for the 3-3 invasion, Atari, and then connect the weakness, all you have to do in this position is play a 2-5 point. And after you play 2-5 point, look at the territorial difference. Yeah? Black has just way more territory than white has. So in this position, it's pretty much game over already in this position. You might wonder why I play the 2-5 move. The 2-5 move, later on in the single digit queue or the down levels, I will go deeper into this move. This is a very special move in a 9x9 Go game. We covered if white approaches a corner or jumps into 3-3. What if your opponent approaches like this with a one space jump? Then again, pretty simple. You can take another corner. If your opponent takes another corner, if white takes another corner, you might think, okay, this is getting a bit even in terms of territory. Now you try to play the next biggest point, the shared points on the board. So if white gets this point, it's very big. If black gets this point, it's also very big. So black can play here. Black can play this diagonal move, trying to jump into white's territory. Black can descend, white block, and black can play another move over here. Take the endgame, take this endgame, extend, white might squeeze, and then you save your weakness. In this position, I think the game is quite even in this position. And at the end, black wins the game by 2.5 points. Finally, what happens if your opponent jumps and attaches next to your stone? Here is where you have to do a little bit of judgment. There are two ways to go about this. Once again, you can use a hane, defend your corner, connect, which is the same as the 3-3 example in the last video. Or you can use a descent this way. If white takes a corner, then you transpose into the 3-3 invasion joseki. Another variation is you can use a hane and try to fight this way. If white extends, you can block, and this is another 3-3 invasion joseki. If white plays here, you can use a double hane. And this should be a playable position and quite nice position for black. If your opponent attaches your stone from above, then you can just build your own territory. For example, descent, securing the corner, or extending out on e6 and developing a side territory. This white stone is still pretty weak, and black already built a very solid territory. Now let's move on to 5-5. 5-5 is where things can get very, very interesting. When you start off with a 5-5, all of these moves, around this point is pretty even. They are quite equal. According to the AI, playing any of these moves will be a half a point game under perfect play. But for this mastery 9x9 mastery lesson, I will give you the most down to earth and most structured way to go about when your opponent plays any of these moves, or if your opponent play any of these attaching moves. So these 4 attaching moves, your opponent might be playing there as well, and I'll show you a few ways to handle them. Let's get rid of all the letters. And if your opponent, the most common way in this position is either playing the 3-3, which you can respond with jumping down and jumping over here. If your opponent over here in this position takes the topside territory, then this is quite likely a winning game for black. Your opponent might also play a 3-5 point. So any of this, or this. Then you have a few ways to answer this move. One of the ways is a nice move. You can use a one space jump. Or the simplest way I recommend you guys, if you use a 5-5 point, especially with double DGQ, is use a nice move this way. You defend your own territory and you try to build territory over here. So right now in double DGQ, there is zero purpose looking into AI moves. But right now, it is very important that you know what you're trying to do and you have a good sense of territory, even on a 9x9 board. Your opponent might use a nice move, and here you can just simply use an attach, secure a territory, or you can do a little bit of fighting. Use a tiger's mouth, your opponent retreats, you extend, and you're threatening a push and cut weakness. Your opponent white might connect, and here you can use another basic shape, either diagonal move or a nice move, and keep building that territory. This will be quite a nice result for black as well. And on the perfect play for white in this position, I think black still will be able to get a winning position in this position. So right now, yeah, so black is still going to win this game. So when you play a 5-5 point and your opponent plays some fancy moves such as 3-3, 3-5, or like 3-4 point, don't worry. you play away and build your territory on the other side of the board. Now, what happens if your opponent attaches next to your stone? This can be very annoying. So here is one little trick I want you to think about. If your opponent attaches over here, this is the 4th line, you're on the 5th line. As long as you can get the territory on the top side and give your opponent the bottom side territory, you will end up winning the game. So if a game ends up like this, and let's say you have to defend once in your own territory, your opponent, white has 27 points, black has 36 -1, black has 35 points. So as long as you enclose the door from the middle, you will win the game. If you're making the top side territory and your opponent is attaching on e4 or the bottom side, as long as you make territory on the top side, without giving away your center line, you'll be able to win the game. However, if you play a little bit passive, for example, you go over here and you let your opponent do a bit of the pressing and you lose some territory over here, then it is quite likely that your opponent can catch up. So let's say both players get the same thing. Black gets this, white gets this. In this position, black is winning by 1 point on the boards. And by playing a little bit more passive, black actually lost about 7 points worth of value. And white will win this game by 5.5 points. So it is very simple when your opponent attach. If your opponent attach this way, it's still very simple. Make sure you can give your opponent the side they attach on is completely fine. You have a bigger territory. And by playing like this, you'll end up with 8 to 9 points winning on the boards. And you can win the game. So that is quite straightforward. I'll see you guys in the next lesson where I will be reviewing a double-digit Q game with the openings. I'll see you guys in the next lesson where I'll be reviewing a double-digit Q game and we'll talk about the opening and some middle game fights and some directional play and judgments. See you guys in the next lesson. Bye bye.